But
You chicken.
this is.
I think you're funny. It's pretty awesome. I think you're following along your notes here.
Looking through the whole package, reading it.
Yeah.
He said things, but it starts a while ago.
Once ago.
Sense. Don't know, we hadn't heard anything about them, so. Live.
Yep.
To see.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Monday, April 1st meeting of New Britain Township. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic and the nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Our first item on the agenda is chair comments. The board met in executive session before this meeting to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and or litigation matters. We also met on March 7th and March 19th for personnel issues. At this time, we're going to rearrange our agenda just by one part. We've had a request by one of our presentation people to bring his part forward. So first we will have agenda item 5A, Mike Philotrolt from the North Penn Water Association, who is our board representative. You would like to come forward and yep. Hi.
Well,
Representative North Penn Water Authority. I just, first and foremost, I wanted to say hi and really ask you if you have any questions for me as your representative. If there's anything you want from me as in those meetings, but I also have a couple of things to talk about. One being the Ferry Road main extension, a plan to extend water service to the Shrine of Czestochowa, and the private road policy that you all received a letter about. So I can address those, I'll address those one at a time and just definitely questions.
Sounds.
So the first one is the Ferry Road main extension. I understand there's been some correspondence back and forth with the board about the drainage on the road. I wanted to understand or know, is that still an open issue for the board? I get asked every meeting about it. And I know that they are more than happy to meet and cooperatively find a solution. But they also have the position that the contractor returned it to original conditions. So I'm just not sure, other than speaking to my friend back there, where the board was at that time.
Okay. So I think John had done some research in the last week looking for what was our correspondence and what was the talk between some of our staff. So John, do you have?
The superintendent is of the opinion that certain areas where the pavement was extended in the swale area, it's taken away from the swale. We're going to go out and mark some spots we wanted to wait for. The pavement marking was saw recently occurred. Now we're waiting for some sunshine and may go out and mark some areas. Now we'll see. Therefore, and hopefully that'll solve, address some of the issues. Take a little bit of time. The proper authorities.
it's still an issue for us. Yes.
So instead of, I think they took the swales away. So instead of the water running up beside the road, it now has nowhere to go. It just sits on the road. So that was where it puddles and pools and.
See. You know, whole. So. Like today, like maybe it be.
I can absolutely attest to the fact that they extended the road significantly to the embankments, taking away the drainage. I drove that road twice a day for 20 years, and I know it very well, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments on that? I'll certainly take that feedback back to the board. Okay. Next, as some of you may or may not know, as part of that extension, there is a planned service to the shrine at Czestochowa to add them to that main. My understanding is that it's under design. That design is nearly. That's the only extension from any main that I'm aware of. When those types of projects come up, they tell me that I'm supposed to present that project to that board. So my ask of you is, if you're aware of those projects that need introduction to the North Carolina Board, just let me know and I'll be able to do from that function.
The only way we know what they're up to is if you would tell us.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna jump in there. Usually you guys are telling us, or you guys, the authority or residents are telling us, hey, I talked to the authority and we weren't aware. Usually I'm contacted or the township manager's contacted, so. We have to be careful. Certain zoning districts don't allow certain properties to even be connected to public water. So I know the shrine, obviously. I was told the shrine's already connected in some regards. Is that true or not? Yeah.
I don't know. I only know what I've been told.
So usually, I mean, this is kind of rare. Usually we're notified of, hey, like the authority, when someone goes, the sewer authority. When somebody goes to sewer authority, we get this every, I get this every month. Hey, I'd like to connect to public sewer. The executive director emails us right away, say, hey, I have a certain owner, property, whatever, non-residential, residential, asking if they could connect, and then we have a process we go through on our end. So I would actually request a little bit more communication, not through you as much as from that staff. If the shrine must have approached them, that they would reach out to the township manager, engineer, and zoning officer to at least notify that we've been requested.
Yeah.
Could be a potential land development pipeline, or could be other things. So I think there'd be better, and I think that's what the board would like, to be a little more communication up front. I've heard about the shrine and public water for a while, but we have nothing in writing from the authority saying that they were gonna do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's public works, not sewer. Sewer, there's a whole process for it. Water's a little bit different.
Do you ever deny residents from connecting into the public water system?
We haven't been asked. The shrine, I have not, I've been here 25 years. No one's ever asked our office or the zoning officer to connect to public water. It's not part of a development. So now if there's existing well, usually they want to redrill the well. We have a lot of those. But I haven't been asked, and that's why the shrine was kind of unique, that we didn't have something in writing from the authority saying, hey, is it okay to do that? I know the former manager was involved, saying no connection can happen without our approval. So I'm trying to figure out how long the process is going to go, working with the shrine until the authority says, hey, can we connect?
Maybe it's after the design is.
Yeah,
done. I don't know.
I hate to see those dollars spent and all of a sudden there's,
Because at the moment, that is our watershed district. And I know we have certain restrictions on the watershed district. So Craig, what
and
is?
let me interrupt you, sorry, Madam Chair. I did look into, because that question was asked me before, certain entities are required to connect to public water, a church, a school. If I'm assuming someone told me they have a small internal system. I don't know what other properties are connected. We've never seen it, but certain uses are required to connect to public water if it's available. So now it's available, we may have a few requests like this come in where under the zoning ordinance, it says a church, a school, certain other entities are required to connect. We can't force them, but if they're going to do it, then that would be something we would support.
How about a resident along that
It
area?
depends on the zoning district.
So if it's watershed district, I know we try not to have public water.
Yeah, that's
to
where your
that.
comprehensive plan matches your watershed, where If you're in the watershed zoning district, it would be on lot wells. In your SR1 and SR2, there's options if that's kind of the crossover transition area. Depending, there's public water, public sewer options as far as density. So, but the watershed's the easy one because that was matched. That watershed actually is the drainage area to the Forest Park treatment intake. So that, we typically a developer would come in and ask to connect to public water and sewer, not an individual resident.
So now if a resident does want to connect, and we should think that at some point, some residents would like to connect to public
Mhm.
water due to wells drying up or something like that. You're saying that our comprehensive plan does not reflect what our zoning would be. So we have one saying in comprehensive plan, we should not be allowing any public water in watershed district. But
No, say it matches there. The watershed does match, but if public water is now available in certain areas, that was written
Mhm.
prior to a transmission line being installed across the township.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
this is all new for everybody, including myself, as far as what your policy is going to be. There's no ordinances in place saying someone has to connect,
or not.
other than depending if it's a proposed development, if it's non-residential, like a church and a school, they're required if for new.
Mhm,
Shrines existing,
mhm.
we can't go require them to connect. If they ask, that's something you would take up,
If I may, there were, in previous years, this didn't occur last year for some reason, we would receive the minutes from the North Penn Water Authority meeting monthly when they came out. And there were probably the last half of last year, there were never any minutes. They're not on the website. We didn't receive any. So if you could ask them to please make sure it comes to our manager and then the manager can send it on to us. Because that's the only way we would know what they're doing.
Right? Out there. The private road policy, what I'm calling the private road policy, where there's North Penn put out a policy that said that if there's a private road where they would supply water into a, I guess, lot box, then then the community would be responsible for distributing the water throughout. I think that was really inspired by this issue with Hatfield Village, where it's a huge complex of apartments, all privately owned. And they had issues with leaks, and because the pipes weren't owned by the water authority, they were on the hook for all those leaks. But there's been some discussion, there was a little bit of questions from this board, as well as other townships about, well, who's really able to adequately supervise and manage those water pipes. And so that's been taken into consideration, so that policy's on hold. Yeah, I assume there'll be future discussion about it, but I think there's a recognition that the water authority's best position to manage water pipes.
So they're putting it on hold to go back internally to see if it really is part of their purview before reaching back out to the townships.
Yeah. And I think they did not anticipate that policy would be controversial. So receiving that feedback,
Was it other municipalities then? It wasn't just here.
no, there were three this site.
3 large ones.
I'm sure it's part of their minutes, right, who they were, can you share with them who they were?
They most probably on it.
Yes. But it was a public meeting, and it's public already.
No.
But if it was talked about at the public meeting, then. Okay.
Is part of the problem the fact that Hatfield Village was done years and years and years ago? And now if you have a small development that goes in, even if it is private roads, it's a much more higher quality of work and inspection that's done. And so there shouldn't really be that much of a problem for this water authority going forward on the newer developments.
By virtue that it's up to current standards.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when Hatfield Village was built, it was up to current standards. I think that's. I think it was more sort of maybe limiting their liability and hassle. Similar way, the discussion was, well, townships typically will make private, new developments, free up private roads. Township doesn't have to maintain that road and doesn't have to plow it and supply electricity for any walking lights or whatever. So they were thinking, well, if that's the case, then that entire development should be privately managed by an HOA or whatever agency there is. That was the thought process.
Some of those developments are 4, 5, 6 houses, so it's very difficult to who's going to engineer the pipelines, who's going to install them. And would the homeowners who are buying into that really understand the maintenance, especially when that's not been required before? I understand they don't like to lose money, the leaks on them, but it's very difficult for a township looking at developments and the future residents who now have to not only, plow their streets and mow their lawns, but now they have to worry that, in 10 years, that pipe over there might have to be dug up because it's not leaking. And who do they call? And who's going to do the work? And how do we inspect it to make sure it's done correctly? So it's kind of a
Hydrants
head.
have to be flushed every other year or something like that, right? There's a lot of maintenance that has to occur, right? They're probably not adequately. I wouldn't want to trust my neighbors, like 4 other neighbors, to make sure all that stuff is.
Right. So.
Are they looking to, sorry?
Go ahead, I'll go after you. Yeah.
I was just, are they looking, since they were looking forward to do new HOAs, are they going to look back and see what kind of HOAs they may be set up for? I mean, Hatfield Village was a huge one built in 1968, so it's literally just, have they seen this maybe coming up in other areas? And that's why they're really honing in on it?
It sounded like it was sort of a one-off with Hatfield Village. They did note that there were other complexes that were adequately managed by groups rather than by the residents. And that they feel comfortable that organization is adequately maintaining the pipes. So no, they were only looking to go for future looking projects.
Scott?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just following up on what you were saying with the the neighbors and whatnot, yeah, so it's a lot different to find a contractor to plow and a contractor to pave than you're dealing with this. And the question I had is, do they have blanket easements for some of these developments where they do have the ownership? I mean, I just know our firm represents two authorities here in Bucks County, including one of the biggest, and how we handle dealing with these with private developments, private roads, nothing being dedicated is we do still take dedication of the system, and we just get a blanket private easement over the entire development that we would have access, so that the concerns that they had with Hatfield Village wouldn't apply. So do you know if they've been doing that in the past, or?
I don't know. I know they were looking at the analogy of an apartment building where they would supply water to the building.
Right.
And not bill each unit separately. Sort of looking at that as the analogy, but that's one owner versus.
So I was gonna say,
It's one owner versus multiple, and I just know from with representing the authorities we represent, they want to have control over everything up to the lateral for these reasons, because that pipe breaks, doesn't matter who's responsible, they're still losing water, so.
I agree, 100% agree with Scott. We were more questioning You know, what's the genesis of it? And if we can help, if every township can adopt or revise their ordinances to address the authorities' concerns, like requiring an easement if the road's not, which we do anyway, but maybe sometime, maybe, you know, I'll check my other client, Franconia, but you know, maybe that one township doesn't, but we do. So whether it was private or public here, it looks, it's identical. So it wouldn't achieve anything. If we took dedication of it, they'll still, if there'll be obviously right away. If it's private, we still have an easement. Township has a right to go in to access everything. So does the rest of the public. Because it's, you know, so maybe they could look at it and say, hey, here's what we need the municipalities to change in their ordinances to help us. I like your meter pit idea where you still should have a meter pit at the beginning of each development, so you kind of know what's going on as far as if there's leaks and you can shut off, you know, especially for emergency purposes, but and also just monitoring usage on these smaller little 6 lot subdivision we have a lot of. So maybe they could come back to all the clients or their clients and say, hey, here's what we're looking, if you guys could help us, because I think that's a better approach to require certain things and put in place for any future development. I won't address existing developments.
I didn't hear any of those those concerns voiced. So, my hunch is that was not a driving force, but, yes.
Anything else from the board? No? Is there any questions from the public for our representative?
It's a very interesting subject, I'm sure, to
Water is the next big thing.
Well, I thank the board for, entrusting your, giving me your trust in the water board. I'm thrilled to be in this role and it's a full organizations.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you
do.
so much.
Right. Have a great meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so now we will move on to agenda item 4, back to the interview for the zoning hearing board candidates. First, we have Robert Byrne.
So I don't know how we're feeling this blank and stating all that.
Well, once you sit down, we'll tackle you. So Robert, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Robert Byrne, 245 Lower Park Drive. I've been a resident for 37 years. 7 years ago, I ran for supervisor. I did not. But I had 49% of the vote. So I've been waiting for an opportunity to serve this community, and this came up. So that's why I'm here. I am retired and worked for Merck Pharmaceutical for years. I was a director of global access. I negotiated with governments all around the world to negotiate access for patients through all of the drugs. My portfolio of drugs that I covered was $3.5 billion annual dollars. So my negotiation skills, my understanding of regulations, I think is key to all like this. It really help. I have set up and launched products at Merck. So I had to come up with the launch strategies and deal with the regulations in the US with the FDA. Did health economics research to design the programs necessary to get patients access. So regulatory environments, been there, I've done lots and lots in that case. So again, dealing with regulations, doing the things like that is I've done for years. Prior to working at Merck, I worked in a printing company, Willow Grove, and it was prior to that in Sydney, Wales. Again, printing, I ran the company, so it was dealing with regulations. Again, you have hazardous waste, you're not just dumping it. You have to, but it's really important having to do with designing facilities. We moved the facility from one place to another. We had to design a new facility. We had to deal with regulations within town, within zoning to make sure that we were able to put in the equipment that we needed and be able to do things. Access, all of
system. Prior to that, I had well, much prior to that, when I was younger, I had my own improvements company. We actually, a friend of mine got out of high school, we had a home improvement company. We actually worked on building and development in Homedale, New Jersey. It was a great experience, but again, it had to do a lot with understanding regulation. That right out of high school, that was still thing. In between my printing jobs, I also worked in a community in Powell Township where I was the facilities manager. Again, dealing with regulations and ordinances. We had our own sewage treatment plant on site for the development. Again, having to deal with any interpret regulations to make things as they needed to be. Again, puts me in a nice place to be in this position.
Okay, anybody else would like to start with any questions?
Do you serve on any other committees currently or elected positions?
Have you worked with any attorneys or engineers in your life at the moment? Yeah, yeah. Well, no, in your past, yeah.
With everything he did was to make sure you were the narrows of regulations. We were constantly, as attorneys, my direct supervisor was one of the attorneys.
Have you ever been in front of our zoning hearing board?
Right.
So you know the process and, yep. As part of the zoning hearing board, you are adjudicating things. You're not actually making policy. Do you think that you could be impartial if a project came in front of you that you found that you were not in favor of, but you could be impartial to see how our zoning laws would apply to that and how to adjudicate on that?
Everything gets evaluated based on regulations and ordinances in place. My opinion of something absolutely has no impact upon those ideas. It's interpret the regulations, apply them to the situation, come to a discussion with the other members, come to the proper.
Anybody?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for replying.
Okay, next on our list is Terry Young. Please come forward. Tripping over anything. Terry, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, for starters, hope everybody had a good Easter weekend. I had my grandbabies in this weekend, so I took some notes on Thursday of what I wanted to say this evening. If you don't mind, I'll just work my way through those and I'm going to get questions after that. So my name's Terry Young. I live at 77 Walter Road in New Britain Township. Thank you for considering my application this evening. My wife Barbara and I, we moved here approximately 11 years ago. We actually never lived in Pennsylvania before. We chose to retire here to the township. We have a small hobby farm on the west side of the township. So approximately 8 or 9 years ago, we became more acutely aware of some of the township's build-out issues faced by residents. This occurred when cornfields on two sides of our property were developed into a subdivision. Well, on the other two sides of the property, the township had actually taken action to preserve. At that time, we had some lengthy discussions with the landowner who owned the land where the subdivision was developed. He's our neighbor. He's still it's a subdivision. He took us through this 12-year odyssey that he had gone through trying to get this property developed. It's pretty enlightening to hear his story of things that happened. So this was our kind of up close and personal experience with the important role that zoning and planning have in the growth and development of the township. It was at this time I started to consider how some of my work experience might bring value as a volunteer in those areas. I'm a geoscientist by both degree and work experience. Spent 35 years in the oil and gas industry, doing a wide range of jobs, a wide range of responsibilities. At times, those responsibilities included working with federal and state and regulatory agencies in the US, as well as equivalent agencies in foreign countries. This was cooperative work to ensure compliance with both surface and subsurface regulations during the development of oil and gas fields. There's a very large number of regulations associated with drilling an oil and gas well. There's even more regulations specific to surface development and the build out of an oil and gas field. So I have experience understanding and working with regulatory issues. My work experience has also included interpreting complex and often conflicting data sets that commonly did not have a unique solution. The actions resulting from those interpretations carried significant monetary risks. So I've experienced making determinations or decisions from complex and conflicting information very significant. Once I became aware of a potential opening in the zoning hearing board, I read and reviewed parts of the Pennsylvania planning series on specifically number 4, which deals with zoning, number 6, which deals specifically with the zoning hearing board, and number 7, which deals with special exemptions, conditional uses, and variances. I found those to be very useful, very informative. There's lots of referencing back to the MPC specific paragraphs in the MPC, so those are valuable documents. I also watched several of the most recent zoning board hearings held on or carried on the YouTube channel of the township. And as a property has come up, I bring down Google Earth, let's present close up Google aerial view as well as a street view was clear the issue from the board. And I found that to be educational as well. I did that for all the meetings for 2023, and I think the 1 or 2 meetings I've had for 2024. And the reason I did all of that because I'm serious about this position. As you're aware, the zoning hearing board is a quasi-judicial board. Its members are appointed by the municipality's governing body, but the board operates independent of the governing body. It's an autonomous board. That's a necessary stipulation, and it's a good thing. The primary function of the board is to ensure fair and equitable application and administration of the township zoning ordinance with an overprint around the safety, well-being, and health of the residents. Some of the efforts that the board does is very prescriptive, very little room for alternative use. Other areas like granting certain variances is more discretionary, and so it's important to be attentive, thoughtful consideration on those types of issues. I appreciate the important, serious nature of the work the zoning hearing board does, and I believe I can contribute to that effort based on my experience. If appointed, I would approach the position with the seriousness and attention to the detail that we. With that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the board?
I congratulate you on being able to read Pennsylvania statutes, specifically the MPC, and understand them. So I don't really have any questions. I think you've laid out a long and busy career. Very impressive.
I'm gonna ask you the same question that I asked the last potential candidate, and that is, do you currently hold any elected or committee positions?
I don't hold any elected position, but I am the township's vacancy chair.
So would you be willing to resign that?
I would be willing to resign that chair if it was
Okay.
necessary to be on.
I believe there is something that's stipulated in our code. I don't have.
Yeah, not sure
NPC.
about that. The NPC?
The NPC.
Yes, there's something, a conflict, so you just don't want to have being a
Sure, on any of the
semi-judicial.
board.
Any elected official or any board. Because you're quasi judicial, it's
Yeah.
always good to
Can't have
have.
any that conflict separation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll ask you the same 2 questions. Have you had any experience working with any engineers or
attorneys.
Yes, I have a history. Both.
Yeah.
I prepared testimony. Regulatory agencies as well as.
So have you been in front of our zoning hearing board at all?
No, I have not. I just watched it on.
Okay. And then being that it's quasi judicial and you've already said that you have testified in front of it. Would you be able to be impartial if you believe that you disliked a proposal that was in front of you, that you could still follow what is set in our zoning code?
Yes, absolutely. Would be a prerequisite to take. Sure.
Any other questions?
I do not have any other questions.
Thank you very much. Terry.
After one, you have a trip hazard.
Which one?
Previous corporation I worked on, the court here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we know.
We'd be in trouble if we did that.
Don't trip on that cord.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take that down.
Next, we have Brian Brazil. Good evening. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was not born. I had, went out, just, sir, questions have been asked. I can tell you that I came out of high school, I joined the Marine Corps, and I went into, aviation, and a lot of the helicopter repairs that we had to do. I was here at Willow Grove, this for my life. Other places, we had to, a lot of times, you know, because in the 90s, in the military, there's a big drawdown. So they was always trying to do, they were always trying to do things cheap. So it's to save money. So a lot of times we were trying to work with engineers. So we always had a tech rep, like somebody from the corporation, either Boeing or let's see,
Lucky.
now it was a helicopter company. I forget, and that doesn't matter. But a lot of times we'd also have to call engineers, either in Tucson, Maryland, or up in Connecticut where Sikorsky is, to, to find repairs for these helicopter parts to save the military money. So like I said, that a lot of times I spent a lot of time consulting with engineers about how to find those solutions that people in the military wanted to, in order to save that money. And then after I did that for about 10 years, and then I became a high school history, government, economics, law teacher. Social studies covers a wide range of topics, and that's what I've been doing pretty much since I got out of the Marines. I did a lot of home repairs, especially when we lived in Upper Moreland, bought fixer upper. So a lot of times I was going down to the township office to get permits and, making sure that my, whatever I was doing, whatever project I was doing was in compliance with those township rules. And so, when I saw that there was a zoning board opening, I'm at the point now in my life where I have more time, my kids are out of the house. So I'm willing to serve on the zoning board.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I'm gonna ask my question again, and I do know the answer to this one, but do you currently serve on any other boards or committees?
I do, I serve on the Veterans Committee.
And would you be willing to give up that spot if you were elected to the zoning and hearing board, even if it would break your heart?
I see no reason why I should have to give up the Veterans Committee to be on this committee.
It's Red, do you have?
It's
In the municipalities planning code, no member of the zoning hearing board is allowed to be an elected official or appointed representative of any township position. You can only, with the zoning hearing board, you can
It's just the
only be,
zoning
you can only be.
Oh, it's just the zoning board.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very well, then I will, yes, if
Yeah.
appointed, I will
If you
resign my position on the.
that's why it's one of those very central things is the zoning hearing board is quasi judicial. It needs to be its own little baby. So,
You can still volunteer for the veterans.
yes, always looking for volunteers. We'll have to say that. Okay,
This is a new liaison to the Veterans Committee.
so then I will ask my two questions. Have you ever worked with any attorneys or lawyers?
Well, I'm married to a lawyer,
That's
so daily.
Yeah.
So. No, I really haven't had, trying to think, I've never been in trouble, so I've never
Yeah.
had to use the services of a lawyer.
So then have you ever been in front of the zoning hearing board since you were doing so many in Upper Moreland? Have you ever had to go through that process?
I actually never had to go before the zoning hearing board, whatever, like I said, whatever they said had to be done. I just did, like, one point I had to put up a shed, but it had to be like, originally I was gonna put it like 3 feet from the fence, but then I found out that the rules of that municipality required 10, so it was easier to move the shed than it was to ask for a variance.
Yeah.
But I do know, like I had neighbors in Upper Moreland that would try to, one guy he wanted to build like this giant, it would have been a monstrosity, because he wanted this camper inside it. It was way too close to the neighbor's fence, and I know when he went to the zoning board to get that, ask for that variance, his neighbors made sure that variance was never.
So you have seen the process?
I have.
Yeah, okay. And then, so the same thing, it's, if you come across a plan application that comes in front of you that you disagree with, would you be able to become impartial and follow the zoning code that we have? Instead of doing, what's the word, that you adjudicate for the township rather than try to set any policy? Being impartial, yes.
I do feel like I'm being impartial.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the board? No? Thank you very much, Brian. Next on our list, our last candidate, Sarah Bake. How do you say the last name?
I'm with Act that I will be serving as the director at our precincts. I see that they're much better qualified. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for applying. Please apply again if you would like to serve on any other board or commission. So now we will close those interviews at the moment. I think we do have one more person who may be interviewed on May 6th. As he is one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, on to agenda item number 5. We are now back to our presentations. I will call on our financial director, Kristen, to present the accounting software and payroll software systems.
That's a fun one.
Hoping.
See. Practice it was so much better.
No pressure. We're all good.
You can send me.
Yeah, there we go.
Do some lights.
There we go.
Yes, please.
Backwards.
Maybe. still not, that,
There we go.
thank you.
You just want to hit some bubbles.
Yes, there's a little. It's going those.
Good night.
I don't know what it, what.
Oh, nice.
Good evening.
I appreciate this opportunity to discuss the township research and findings on these kind of software and tools. This is tonight's agenda for the discussion. Based on the numerous calls with Edmunds IT support, the township noted 6 key findings in the current state of affairs. The takeaways are the software is inefficient, it's cumbersome and outdated. The big picture is no data management capabilities. Based on the findings, the township's goals are to have an efficient, real-time data management system that tracks the life cycle of a board initiative from a budgeted program or project over the course of time to measuring performance. Below are the major areas of improvement for an efficient process. Based on the township's findings and assessments, the township went out to the marketplace to determine what was available compared to the current status. In the comparison below, it's obvious. Edmunds is nothing more than a digital checkbook. No details exist other than an Excel spreadsheets. The paper files exist in another location. The inter and the intra relationships between the funds are non-existent. There is no cash management. Conversely, it is obvious Excel offers a system from soup to nuts. The entire process from budget development to the actual performance to forecasting or reforecasting for the future exists. It's proactive rather than reactive. And to add insult to injury, Edmunds is more expensive. And if we were to follow through with this, the township has made the efforts to build an implementation program to ensure that we can be running without being, dual, nothing like that. We're running 1-1. But I would be remiss, I didn't mention the current status of the payroll assessing. Our current operation works without experts in the field. As you can see below, the time system the township currently uses is the same program used by their competitor. The competitor is able to utilize data management without creating an unnecessary obstacle for the employee. And just like the accounting software, it's cheaper. And now I'm available for some.
Oh. Who would you like to start with any questions?
My question is, who in this surrounding area and what surrounding townships or boroughs have either one of these capabilities?
With Excel in particular, you mean?
Casellas and
Cathell, Warwick, Warrington, Salisbury, and Newtown.
the town borough without it. How long have they had them?
Have you asked did you reach out to any of the financial directors there and ask them their opinions of their product, of the accounting system?
They all have GFOA certifications, which means that they have a financial system that you meet all that checklist that the GFOA puts you through. There's a lot of hoops and hurdles to go through. And they're all really pleased especially with the fact that, all data management software comes in modules. And the reason they have the modules is kind of like Legos. You don't build something out until you need to. And so it has that capability that as your scalability increases, or if you need more flexibility, you can get another module.
Would the Excel software also include with it, ability to manage the escrow accounts?
There is no reason for escrows, training, or any details for that matter to ever be in an Excel spreadsheet with these types.
So at the moment, if I'm understanding this correctly, Edmonds, you have the bare bones, but then you have to use more time and more of your expertise to then take that information out, put it into Excel spreadsheets so that you can manage it, understand it, reconcile, do escrows, and then come back to Edmonds. Whereas Cassell, it's all integrated. You do one entry, it then flows to all the parts that it needs to. So your time saving would be a huge amount.
I would have a huge, in this process, would have a huge amount of time savings. And I would then be allowed to have the detail that when the board is looking at a higher level initiative that is township wide, then I can then look at the details to give you an idea if it's feasible or not. But I'm not gonna, but the clerks are gonna have the same amount of work, but they're not gonna be doing the same number 5 times. They're gonna
So
be
their
doing
time would
different
be-
numbers to create as much detail as I will need, which is the same amount of time, to get more than I do.
I have another question. When you, on the cost, say Edmonds, the current software investment would be 32.5. Is that what we paid for what we currently have? Or is that what would be necessary to add on another module?
No, that's what we paid.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And the
We
implementation was 53,000?
Yes, and that's true for Cassell. That's how much it costs to get what we need from Cassell. Cassell offers many of, the literature that a lot of that literature that I gave you. Cassell offers many more modules, but I didn't ask for.
Okay, I was just trying to, I was just trying to understand if the number you have down for Edmonds was additional modules, or that's what we already paid.
When I spoke to Edmonds at length on many calls, even if I got another module from them, their modules don't offer the same level of efficiency that I can get from Excel. I would still have to use Excel work.
When you said the information you sent us, I'm sorry.
There was supporting documents when she sent us this PowerPoint before.
Okay,
Well, not only the PowerPoint, but there was also extensive.
2 weeks ago, we sent out rather complex assessment here were all the modules that Excel offers. We're only talking about the ones we need. The cost that was in the package for Edmonds was the cost for the current modules.
okay, so we've already spent that money, the maintenance, when is our current maintenance
We're
program?
on an annual basis, operating.
Okay,
So you would not be thinking of moving from Edmonds to Cassell until the end of the year? There's a lot of prep to get everything
There's a lot of-
ready.
Yeah, in that implementation thing, it shows off, those are, we have to go through all of that before.
and I had asked this, but I'll ask it again for public's consumption. Can we switch payroll companies, June 30 or July 1st without having Excel implemented?
Yes. I want to.
No, we should. We share the torture. We would like you to switch payroll companies too.
And maybe like us to.
Sure.
So I understand that we will be able to make a decision at this meeting. I understand that. And I then understand that I would have a narrower window, but I would also like to explain that they'll have people in their hopper that I may miss an opportunity because they'll be like, well, since you didn't get back to us, somebody else that signs paperwork, they're going first.
Okay.
And you will go after them. But I'm sure it's going to be that dire, but I wanted to make it seem that way.
Just to clarify for the public, the maintenance cost for Casell versus Edmunds currently, what's making up that big chunk?
Between Casell or.
And Edmunds currently, what we currently have.
And currently in Evans is the fact that like, because we have Excel spreadsheets. We also need additional staff right now that we're going with outside services and always have throughout the course of its life. That we can't like depend on software or such to get us over a hurdle. We always have to get a person.
In, which adds to the expense, and that's an advantage of that.
If I build it right, but I will say if I build it out right.
If it's spelled out right, okay, all right, thank you.
So here's the $1,000 question, $1 million question. Do we have,
$1
do we have anything budgeted for this?
There's nothing in the budget, there is expenses for. That will offset the cost of future years. Which includes doing the escrows, that would cost. There is funds available. Sent to you. In the program, if you wanted to do it, here's how funded, here's the cost, here's where the funds would come from. Here's a timeline, here's the cost reduction savings you would have in the future from this person not being here. I can provide that to you.
I understand those costs, but if we're looking at putting out $65,000, it's gotta come from somewhere. Would ARPA funds be available for this?
It would be, yes.
So what, actually, that's a good question. What would be our outlay for this year? Would it be the 65,000 plus the 32,000, which is the software investment and the implementation? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Anything that you would see as the highlight that would make this the most absolute thing that we need to buy right now? As a finance director, because this is it, this is your job, this is your wheelhouse. What is the most important thing to you that would make Casell the thing to go with rather than Edmunds?
Edmunds, I received a question, well, there's a couple examples. One example is that Bill asked me a question about a line item. He was like, this looks, I don't understand why that number is the way that it is. And Edmunds doesn't have a 13th period. And when you don't have a 13th period, you have financial statements and then you have your fund operations, and they should be separate. Because what you do on a financial statement can muddy the water, especially when it comes to accruing expenses back to a prior period. But the cash outlay isn't until it's in the current period, so hence your budget is reflecting a cash outlay. And when you don't have a 13th period, and I'm not depending on our auditors to do bookkeeping, I'm doing it, then it's difficult to see what's going on when you don't have a 13th period. And Edmunds doesn't reconcile itself on its own. I have to reconcile, and so does the clerk, every day, every transaction to make sure that it's balanced. And Casell is one of the newer products that that's what it does. It reconciles itself, it creates audit reports that show if something, because software glitches, as we all know, but they all have reports that show something isn't right. Edmunds doesn't do that, and that concerns me. And then, finally, I need to never have to say, I have to have a meeting to discuss something that's been decided in the past. But I can't find the Excel spreadsheet that it was on to know what the details are. I can maintain all the details for everything that comes through the process, rejected or accepted. Because as you guys have board initiatives, it doesn't mean that everything that comes before you gets accepted and then gets budgeted. But I can still have the details of what existed and what could be. Because again, when we talk about forecasting and reforecasting, it's based on the performance as of now, because I can also look at something today. Whereas with Edmunds, I have to wait until I can get all of the bank statements to make sure that everything is reconciled, because Edmunds just does not do that. And when you're analyzing what your decisions were 6 months ago, 9 months ago, or maybe just a month ago, I can give you the information to be able to say, are we on track or are we not? And that's what I want to be able to provide to all of you, is that kind of information in a very timely manner, rather than me having to say, you're gonna have to wait.
More read.
Or I don't know, and I'm gonna have to then recreate what it was because I can't find it.
Any other questions from the board? I'm going to open up any questions from the public. Would they like to know anything about our accounting system?
Then we-
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christie.
I'm gonna get.
This was. I remember John Bay did at one point.
I mean, never did anything.
Because it was ridiculously expensive. It was like $30,000 left. And I think even I said something like it. You didn't put notes. But
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 5C, zoning ordinance proposed amendments. Handing it over to Craig and Dave.
I'll start. I brought reinforcements this time. Should have our memo of March 25th. This is our third time we've discussed a proposed amendment. Your first amendment was on trees, woodlands, and landscaping. That was back in December. Then we did parking and traffic amendments. That was in February. And then tonight we're going to, and this is miscellaneous zoning amendments. This is not some big stuff that we probably do at another time. To be honest with you, Janine had kept a list from my office from probably 3 or 4 zoning officers ago. And it's been a running list, and then Dave started adding it. We're like, hey, let's add miscellaneous zoning comments. So I'm gonna turn it over to Dave. To be honest with you, it's a lot of smaller stuff. So if you want to work offline, like we've done on some other amendments, I appreciate the feedback I do and questions I get on the other ones. You have the amendment. We don't have to go through all of it tonight. Again, you'll see this again in the summer when we pull all of it together. Scott will prepare a draft resolution. We'll have to send it to local planning commission, Bucks County Planning Commission, and then eventually land on your desk for approval. So we'll do a zoning and a subdivision land development. You'll see 2 of them. They're going to run concurrent, and we'll do that sometime in the summer. So I'll turn it over to Dave.
Yeah, I mean, as Craig said, thanks, Craig, it's.
it's basically minor little things, stuff to be consistent with the MPC, like, for example. For a building permit, we had in there. We had a discrepancy between 200 and 250 square feet for a structure. To be consistent with the MPC, we needed 250. It's just minor little things like that. I mean, the first things first, I hate to say the term A-lots, because that's a firestorm. But in regards to A-lots, we're including that in the total area for a lot. Because essentially it's like an easement over the property. And with easements, you count that towards the total lot area. So there's no discrepancy. Sure. That's how we're treating A-lots or total lots in the township for total lot area. I mean, I can go through one by one, like Craig said. Want me to? I can. If anyone had any questions, I'll.
We'd all like to get home before midnight.
Yeah.
So,
I would tell you, again, most of them have been a prior list. I did go over them with Dave. Gene and I met with Dave. I went over them separately since I know a little bit of the history, like the A-lot comment. There's some others where they're related. We didn't have any information on fences or retaining walls in front yards, and we needed to tighten that up. And again, some of it was inconsistent with the subdivision land development ordinance. So that'll be the last amendment I do, is clean up the subdivision land development ordinance. Anything we take out of zoning, like I said before, I'm gonna put it in the subdivision ordinance. And then you'll see that, in the next few months, I'll bring that back for your last amendment. So
I know that you had included, a zoning map, with the township. In what you sent out there, are there any changes to the zoning map?
No.
No.
We did not change any. The only use, and it was actually my recommendation, was some reason we had, you know, near Dave nor I know all the zoning changes. If some of it was done, I was not involved years ago. But there was one, we took out warehousing that was in a business campus use. Which was strange to have a warehousing inside of a business campus instead of other uses, but we did not change any zoning districts. Again, that's something that's been discussed about uses. I thought maybe at some point we do tackle that as what proposed uses are in what district but that's a much bigger bite of the apple. We should do that separately. That's a bit controversial when we started to rezone properties and add and take away uses from a certain district. So
Did someone pull this together for us?
that's in your ordinance, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Actually, it's a nice little cheat sheet that I do use quite a bit. Someone calls it.
I use it every day.
There we go. So that's our little, yeah. So what everybody's referring to is each district and each use, and is it a what, yes, no, special exception, conditional use, like that. So
It's just
it is very.
big. So yes, so once it's all four are done, then we'll be sending it to all our committees to have their.
Yeah, and like I said, like, you know, when if you have any questions or comments, email Dave, myself, and then we'll get you an answer back, and then we'll pull it all together in the summer.
I would suggest we send each one out as they come in to our committees, because just imagine if we had to sit down and look through all of them at once.
That's actually how you need.
We can do that to get them started, but we will have to do
You
it.
will have to do
Yeah.
it.
From a procedural standpoint, we will.
Oh, I understand.
What we could do is give them I think the red line, the markups is valuable. Instead of just getting, oh, here's a new document. We don't know what's changed. So yeah, we can keep the red
I
line.
totally agree.
And then Scott will prepare one that's consolidated advertisement.
I mean, just for their review.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, we could keep it like.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the public? Please stand up, state your name and your address.
Margaret Briggs, 245 Forest Park Drive. I am speaking as a resident and an owner of an A lot, as opposed to a committee member. The only thing that I would caution you to make sure is covered in other sections of our code is to ensure that developers do not take advantage of this and use all of the impervious on the primary lot when they're building the home and the driveway and the sidewalks and all of that, and leave nothing for the resident who ultimately buys the home. I know that we have section 27-2108 bifurcation of restrictions, where you're looking at percentages, the developer getting 21%, for example, in a residential district. And then the residents themselves, the homeowner would be at 25%. However, if you were taking an entire property, I'm just giving you a hypothetical here. That is, let's just say 40,000 square feet, the entire thing. But of that, 4,000 is the primary lot and 36,000 is the A lot. The 36,000 can't be used for anything. The 4,000 is where you put the house and driveway and all of that. If the developer now has the ability with this, I think you might know where I'm going with this, Greg, that they could use 8,200 of that 40,000. And they decide to put, I don't know, some huge house on there, you're leaving nothing for the residents. You gotta make sure wherever else in your code is protecting the resident, that a developer cannot take this little paragraph that's been added at the very beginning here and uses up everything that's there, and the resident has nothing. That's all.
Can you say it's exactly which paragraph you're looking at, just so we
At the
can
very
note it?
first lot area, the adjoining A lots in the same ownership shall be considered within the total lot area.
So you can't, so, I got you.
You know what I'm getting.
Yeah, you can't do A lots anymore. I'm not gonna go over the history of that.
Yeah.
I was here.
You were
can't
here
do it.
you were here for all her zoning hearing board issues, trying to put something on her.
They have not been
Beagle.
treated the same since I've been here. So regardless of that, we were trying to, actually, Dave, Dave was trying to make it simpler. We thought everybody would be happy with that, just trying to, because we looked at exactly, you're looking always from a developer, we're looking at from how to help the residents, so. Right, so we sat there, said how to make it a little easier on the residents, that it'd be small, because you don't have A lots on it. You said 40,000, that's an acre. You're not gonna have that issue. You're gonna have a conservation easement over the wetlands, natural resources, that may be half of that, or your ag soils up in the watershed, that may be 50%. I think people don't realize how much land we take away when you develop, especially in the watershed, or even in the SR 1 or 2. So here we were trying these smaller lots that had some A lots that would help them. That's only for zoning. So if you're impervious, if your lot is like 12,000 square feet, and next, your A lot is half of that, you don't have any land to do a pool and to expand and add a building addition. I have that issue where I live, actually, a developer maxed out and I had to keep going back for variances. So we were trying to actually help the smaller lots. On the larger lots, you have conservation easements. So you guys are now used to seeing that. One of the larger lots where it might be 3 acre lot and they can only develop on 1 acre of the 3 because the rest is preserved in an easement. So,
The A lots have just been,
but you can't do it. That situation does not take place anymore under your current zoning and subject land development ordinance.
thank goodness.
Okay.
I understand you were trying to help, but I just want to look
That's
forward.
Dave's fault for being nice.
I haven't been.
Actually, Janine and I both agreed right away to try to help. The A lot seemed to be a very small lot, so that's what we're trying to do, and that's just one sentence. If the board doesn't, it may make things, again, where now people can come under and say, hey, I have more area to do something than before your neighbor had to go get a variance, and that does happen. When you rewrite the zoning ordinances, you're gonna try to address issues we've had in the past with other property owners. And someone moves in and doesn't have that same cumbersome issue to deal with.
Yeah, and I think you have tried it in newer developments to pull some of that impervious away from the land development, so they do leave it for the
I should have made a statement. I said it's all miscellaneous, but it doesn't mean it's not, to me, that Dave and I know what that means, but none of the changes, we're trying to impact land development or subdivision land development. The only one that I mentioned was like removing a warehouse use from the business campus. I think that was really it. It's all more accessory structures fences, pool, shed, and install. Yeah, so none of it impacts, you know, a big development coming. That, first of all, we need to define what an A lot is. Maybe you can help me write that.
Don't kid, she can't, don't worry.
The last time I was here, I'm just not coming. I'm not feeling.
Well, thank you. We'll move.
We'll look into that, yeah.
We'll look into it. We'll take the comment under advisement. Okay. Please stand and state your name and address, please.
I have a question in general about housing. It seems as though, actually, first of all, I was a child occupational therapist. Kids being able to play. So it worries me, I don't have the specifics, but these housings that are being built, there's no room really for the kids to play. So for example, I don't know the specifics of behind Wawa, but it's such a tiny space. And I think of the ones that are at Bristol Road and Butler.
That's Chalfont, that's not us.
Planning things, you look out for the children, the mental health and the physical health of the children.
Actually, the Wawa was, you went that direction, was
Yeah.
the number one thing was Cynthia's, I want more open space. There's
Yeah.
several acres of open space. Remember, townhouses don't have individual rear yards per se, it's common
Yeah.
elements. So the board requested told do, there's bigger chunks of open space where they can actually play and do things. So I think there's a
Yeah,
couple acres.
larger contained chunk of open space rather than a lot more around the outside. So it's, yeah.
And the
we
same,
do.
and the same with High Point. There will be open spaces and common areas.
Yeah.
There's 6 acre parcel that's part of that.
Yeah.
That's across the
Yeah.
street that
Yeah.
they preserved.
Yes.
So yes, it is on our radar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the town, from the public? Any more from the board?
In general or about moving?
Just about this one.
Okay.
We can do public comment on anything non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. Okay, so now we're moving on to agenda item 6, motion to consider consent agenda, which is A, 84 Schoolhouse Road, Hallmark Escrow Release 1. B, accept resignation of Brooke Newborn from Environmental Advisory Council. C, approve minutes of March 4, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting. Approve minutes of March 18, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting. E, approve the regular bills list dated March 27, 2024 in the amount of $132,364.28. F, approve pre-bailed bills list as follows, dated March 21st in the amount of $3,678.03. Dated March 27, 2024 in the amount of $7,659.17. And G, approved payment number 4 to AH Cornell in the amount of $14,980.50 for the Chamonix Greenway Trail Project. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mary Beth, Jocelyn, second, Bill. Any questions or concerns from the board?
Just on the resignation of Brooke Newborn, her resignation will be effective upon the appointment of the new member.
Yes. Yes, that, as it was written, yes. Stephanie?
I was just gonna say thank you to Brooke for her, even though it was a short window of service, but her service on the Environmental Advisory Council, and I think she's looking forward to her newly appointed position. So thank you to her for that service.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any questions from the public? Yes.
Very amazing. I just want to say that Brooke has been really a wonderful person. Historically, Brooke has always wanted to be on a board. I think she did that. Correct. Born here, you ask who she is, she'll say they've been home from the hospital 2 years. So she got the opportunity to be on the park. She would have loved to stay with her. But she couldn't visit that park with her.
We're sorry to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Action items now. A, do we have a motion to consider resolution 2024-09 granting preliminary plan approval for Birch Run land development? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Bill, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mary Beth. Any questions or concerns from the board, or Craig and Scott, do you want to give us any more information?
The only comment I have is we added the two comments from the AC. Kept it general for landscape and lighting, yes, because we still have final approval yet, so we can work out the details. I assuming the AC will get their official, when they submit final plans, you'll get a packet to actually review. Typically, we'd ask for a memo, like we do from planning commission or fire marshal. And then once the specifics are worked out, Scott and I will incorporate it in the final plan approval, which they have to come back and see you again anyway. So, but those two additional waivers were added. I have no other comments.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Anyone from the public? Please stand.
My name is Becky Flynn again. My whole question is, perhaps I should have noticed this before. This has been a long time. It's got 7 million pages of detail. And tonight, when I was reading it earlier today, it was the first time that I saw that they are being allowed to reach a conservation easement. So I'm wondering what the history of that conservation easement is. What was given to whom, in what place, for what reason, that conservation easement would have been given. And then in conjunction, what is the relationship of that to this, that it could be breached?
Part of the Wawa approval, there was woodlands back there and some woodlands and wetlands, I believe. And as part of the Wawa approval, conservation easement was put on that, not ever contemplating development of this back piece, which is why I've been upset for a while with the board, not this board, but why there wasn't any planning to have a future connection through there. So the township asked the developer if they could connect to the Wawa property, get out to the light. That's the only place to cross there. So that was discussed at length at planning commission, actually several times. That's been brought up numerous times, actually. Yeah, but the conservation easement was simply something the township put on the Wawa property. And then now with this development, it made everybody supported. And the township actually requested the developer connect there. He did not have a proposed connection, so he didn't violate that conservation easement. It was a township that asked to amend that.
It was also discussed before the board of supervisors
Yeah.
when they came in with various sketch plans. And it was to place a road that would be able to lead from that development out to the light. Otherwise, the only ingress, egress for that development would be out onto County Line Road. And we considered that a safety issue.
Both their sketches did not have that. Came up during the sketch plan and discussion. So there's pedestrian connectivity now to that light, so you could go across Butler over the other giant shopping center, through the development, back out over to County Line Road. That's another issue to get you down to County Line Road, but that easement will have for public access, emergency access, and also pedestrian.
Mainly for safety reasons that was allowed.
Understand it as part of the whole, the, I don't know the history of it, but they have made up for something else that's being done.
No.
Why was the conservation easement put on the wetland?
Because there's woodlands there.
Because of the woodlands.
It's this township puts, you can call it an A-lot if you like. This township puts easements over anything you can't touch. Other townships do not. And what happens is you get people that violate the zoning ordinance until the zoning officer gets a call, goes out, and half the trees are taken down. The conservation easement gives this board more authority to, I guess it's actually legal, gets to be a legal issue at that point, that they violated the township. That's a township easement over that property to preserve it. We get plenty of requests to modify those easements. It's required and under the ordinance. That's why we don't have A lots anymore. You have it in easement form. But in theory, as Dave and I discussed, it does the same thing. You can't touch or disturb it, but you get to count that area as far as your overall for zoning purposes. So, but it was a township easement. We've modified those in the past for something like this.
But we're gonna have to say we were longer being safe.
It's just a strip, but it's not, it's a pretty big easement. I believe they're, I don't know how many, I don't have the tree count. We could look at that later. Yeah, I think we asked them to, I don't have all the details on that. I can look at that at once. Yes.
Same. They are being required to plan.
If that's what it says, yes, I don't have that. I trust you. Okay. I don't have anything memorized.
The letter.
Yes, I do not. It'd have to be elsewhere. Yeah. Wherever you like.
Okay, thank you. We have a first and a second. Any more questions? No? All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Passes 5-0. Okay, action item B, motion to consider appointment of CBiz as an additional investment manager for 457B deferred compensation plans. Do I have a motion? Bridget, do I have a second?
Second.
Stephanie? John, would you like to give us a little update on this one, please?
CBiz currently is investment manager for the defined benefit plan. Very happy with their portfolio opportunities, and they would like to have the same investment options to them in something which is their own money.
Thank you. And CBiz is all, we are already working with them.
That's
for
correct.
part of the pension plan. Okay. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? No, all those in favor, please say aye. Passes 5-0. Action item C, discussion on proposed resolutions to be considered at the PSATS conference, which is this month, April 14 to 17. Let's open up to the board. Is there any resolutions that the board would like to discuss?
Do you want to take them in any certain order or?
No.
Okay. There was one resolution that I wanted to discuss. It's resolution 24-26. I'll just read it for the public. Resolve that PSATs seek legislation to allow municipalities to designate a collector for their property tax and promote continuing education for designated tax collectors. And PSATs, the resolutions committee's position is to support that. My concern with that is that we have elected tax collectors, and I don't want to see a situation where the board is given the authority to usurp the power that an elected official has. So I think that while something similar may work, the language of this is too broad. So I would say that we should oppose that, not support it.
I would concur with that, since there are other options available to townships to,
Other townships.
right.
Okay. And
I can concur to oppose it simply because the language is so vague that I'm not really sure what it means.
I agree.
so we don't need to vote on this. It's just a discussion.
We just discussed them, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll mark that one down as the township will oppose that resolution. Are there any other resolutions that people would like to discuss?
I would like to discuss 2402. I will read it, that PSAT seek legislation, in case you don't know, that's the Pennsylvania State
Association of Township Supervisors.
Supervisors. Seek legislation to amend section 601F4 of the PA Workers' Comp Act to require coverage for volunteer emergency service providers who are providing support for organized fundraisers for a volunteer emergency services organization and are injured while performing these duties. Now, while I support the idea behind that, who's paying for this? Who's required to provide the workers' comp coverage?
You would be.
We would be. So this is a unfunded mandate on townships. So why is PSAT supporting it?
Maybe John.
No, it doesn't know what. I would oppose this until it's clarified as to where the funding's coming from. I mean, we do provide workers' comp coverage for our first responders. The fire company, the EMS, obviously our police force is covered as they are our employees. And I can understand the idea behind this, but I can't support something I don't see the numbers for or know where the money's coming from. Because it's kind of, again, broad and vague as to, I mean, how do you contract with an insurance company to cover 5 people that may show, we won't know who they are until they show up one day and.
I think volunteers are covered in certain capacities. I guess I see what you're saying about the unfunded mandate and I don't like that portion of it, but I also think that it is a worthy thought to cover those volunteers who are raising money for our emergency service providers that desperately need that
Yes.
help. And I don't want to discourage people from participating in that or discourage those organizations from holding those fundraisers.
I agree. It's one of those good intentions.
So is there a difference between the liability insurance that I'm assuming we would have for any volunteer than to providing workers' compensation? That is a completely different.
Different policies.
Yeah.
So if we already have liability insurance. That may or may not cover it. See, it's.
Is it a lesson in subrogation? Now everyone wants to force it to go to workers' compensation.
Right.
That's really what's going on here.
And a lot of times workers' comp, it's not exactly in favor of the employee or the injured person.
Which is, might be why the townships are supporting it, because it would take down your liability insurance, send it to workers' comp, which would be the controller then, and tends to be a little bit more favorable to the township then.
To the township.
Yes.
Yeah, potentially, but you don't
Okay.
know. But that liability insurance could still always be there. That liability issue, I mean. Because I would say, looking at this one, it kind of has that same thing as the issue, the previous one, it's kind of vague in what they mean by volunteer. Are they saying the volunteer emergency service providers when doing fundraising activities are covered? Or could it be anyone? Like if I were to go volunteer at the,
Providing support for organized
Yeah.
fundraisers, it says.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you're out there directing traffic, you're now covered under workers' comp instead of just our liability insurance. It's not that.
well,
they
you
wouldn't cover-
you wouldn't be covered under the liability, you would be covered under workers' comp instead.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I think too much like a lawyer sometimes.
Okay,
All right, we'll leave that as is, I guess, then.
so we're in agreement to support that one. Any other resolutions up for discussion?
I believe I have 2 more. 2408 and 2410. These are resolutions that PSAT seek legislation to balance timber harvesting against stormwater management to aid municipalities in meeting MS4 and other stormwater management requirements. And then its corollary is that the PSAT seek legislation to require commercial logging entities to plant 5 trees for every 10 trees cut down in the same area unless the area is being used for farming. And PSAT opposes both of these, stating that they feel it would conflict with another legislation already on the books for agriculture, community, rural. I can't think what E is, which basically is a right to farm, protects agriculture from nuisance complaints and other things. But I don't understand if why we can't ask the legislature to look back at something that's nearly 20 years old and understand that when you harvest timber, you're creating stormwater management. Both of those are obligations of the township. So I'm not, I would support those because I think the legislature needs to take a look at the Acre Act and maybe make some adjustments. I know that it's one of the major issues that gets appealed to the, I believe it's the Attorney General's office, to review for whether the township ordinance is in compliance with the statute. And none of them ever are. So it's an area where there's a lot of uncertainty, and asking the legislature to clarify or fix the statute would seem to be a no-brainer. So I'm not sure why they oppose these.
Yeah, the reason that they gave to oppose it doesn't
Make
really
any
seem to
sense.
make sense.
Yeah, it's not, we're not giving the townships the ability to counteract the Acre Act. We're asking the legislature to look at the 2 mandates they've given us.
I think they could make it.
And put
Work
them together, yes. So I would support those at the voting.
I think I would too.
Mhm.
Yep. So we have consensus to support 2408 and 2410.
So for clarification, those are no votes on all the ones that were saying the opposite of.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so
I think that's all the main.
Yes.
Anything
we are
else?
opposing resolution.
Opposing it.
Yeah.
We were saying no.
Saying no to 24, 26.
Support the resolution. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We would like to support 2408 and 2410, and we would like to oppose 2426.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other resolutions the board would like to discuss? No, okay, moving on. Action item D, motion to accept the proposal from Danny's Carpet and Flooring to scrub and seal the floors of the police department in the amount of $2,100. Chief, oh no, wait, do I have a
I'll make a
motion?
motion.
I second. I second it.
Okay. Stephanie and Mary Beth. Chief, would you like to add some information, please?
So all of you have seen the police department. The
And upset.
yes. Floors that have not been maintained properly in several years. We currently have a cleaning service that comes in toward the week. There was a recommendation from them to have the floors professionally cleaned and sealed so that it makes it easier than clean them and maintain them. We did attempt last year to get quotes from other vendors who either didn't get back to us or came and didn't give us a quote. This Denny's Carpet Floor Care is actually recommended by our cleaning service and has done other police departments.
And you'll be able to do it pretty quickly?
As soon as you say yes.
Any other questions from the board? No? Any questions from the public? No? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All that passes 5-0. Action item E, discussion of the following zoning hearing board applications, 6 Clover Lane and 121 Brittany Drive.
explain it to them.
Do you want to? I can, yeah.
No.
I can do it.
That's a solicitor.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
So, yeah, there's two applications here. I mean, you have the applications, you have Dave's email. One is for a minor increase in the impervious area. Largely it would be considered de minimis. They're putting in a pool. For that one, we recommend no board involvement. And truthfully, same thing for the second one. This is already a non-conforming lot. They're seeking a little bit of relief from the setbacks to add a building addition. Again, it's a non-conforming lot. There's constraints on the property. There's really no reason for the board to be involved in that one either.
Any questions from the board?
I had just one comment on the 6 Clover Lane application. They have their deck or patio, and then they have the pool deck starting 2 feet away, but they have nothing connecting the two. I would think they'd want to put a walkway.
I mean, that's a question we can definitely bring up at the zoning.
They may want to include it since they've
Exactly.
paid all this money to appear before the zoning
I
hearing.
know this applicant's been very meticulous over the last several months with me regarding site plan, stuff like that, so I guarantee he'll have an answer.
Okay.
I've been working with them, let's say, for expect this application. For
Wow.
4 months. Very meticulous.
I just thought I'd mention that in case he doesn't want to have to pay the money to come back again.
Right.
Oh, he's there.
Sure.
So, do we need
No action. You don't need to take any action unless someone is intending on sending our office.
Action item F, motion to consider accepting deeds of dedication for the legal and ultimate right of way for Railroad Avenue. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mary Beth, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bridget? Scott?
Yep. So this is for the 4-lot subdivision at the corner of Barry and Railroad Avenue. The project was 98 Railroad Avenue. These are just you accepting the expansion of the legal rights of way along Railroad Avenue as well as Barry Avenue. And with it already being an approved plan, you've sort of already agreed to accept it. This is just the formal process, and we can sign off on the dedications and they can start getting those recorded and finalized in our favor.
Any questions from the board? No? Any questions from the public? No? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Information items. Engineers report.
I want to protest. There's no manager's report, there's no solicitor's report.
You have a manager's report.
They should have to talk about it as well. Now I'm looking for my.
Oh, you love to talk. Come on.
I have, you have our March report. I have, no additional comments on that. However, the board did ask for me to get an update on the North Branch Park and Pine Run Trail survey. That survey is being done by aerial drone. We will support, that, and the drone will be surveying the entire North Branch Park and part of Pine Run property that you own. And then, that'll be around $24,000. I think it'll come in less, but I'm rounding up. And that's the number I'd already given to you. And then for us to plot the boundary of the park, provide support, field targets and everything else for the, we have to locate certain parts for them to tie into boundaries. And then convert everything and create 2 base plans. You'll have a base plan, survey plan of the entire park now, which you do not have, and we've been asking for years. And then the trail that we'll be working on in the future, for the Pine Rail, the bridge and connecting over to the elementary school. We'll have a base plan for that. So we'll create those 2 survey base plans for another $8,000. And that is, you have several projects that will spin off of this. The board are already, and along with the manager directed us to start working on the survey. That way we can go after the proposals. We can work on design projects for the park, the playground, the trails. That'll be budgeted throughout the next couple of years. But we need to do the survey work to get started with all this. That's the only update I have.
Any other questions by the board?
Just will we be able to get those drone surveys done before the trees leave up?
So I wasn't gonna get to the schedule, however, it is hopefully scheduled for the end of this week. To be flown, if not, and then hopefully I will have mid-May survey plans for both properties for you.
Perfect. Any questions from the public? No, all those in favor? Oh, no. Don't need to do anything. We passed that last time. Okay. Anything else from? No?
No, sorry,
No?
no, that's it.
Okay. I will ask our solicitor. Do you have anything else that you would like to report?
Nothing this evening.
I'm done. No. All right, Board of Supervisors comment. I'm going to start with Stephanie.
I don't have anything today.
Nothing. Bill? No? Bridget?
I just wanted to thank our office staff, Works and Rec people, Public Works, and everyone that helped with the indoor Easter egg hunts. And the bunny that visited. They worked hard. Yes, and it was hot, as I understand for the bunny. Yes. Yes. So just big thank you.
Again, just thank you for the Easter egg hunt to Park and Rec and everyone else that took part. That's it.
Okay. All right. Public comment. Is there someone who would like to public comment? Please stand up, state your name again.
Ian and Chua for Inverness. I wanted to say I really appreciate the magazine that comes out from the township. There's also events and things in it. And then I have a negative. I'm wondering about political trailer in front of Target World. And how long it would be there? Do they need permits? I find it very aesthetic that that's there. I see it every time I leave my neighborhood.
Political.
In front of the-
What's a political trailer?
It's a trailer. And it's the trailer that opens up.
Up Trump store.
Oh, it's a pop-up store.
It's a
Yeah.
pop-up store.
So where would we? Would that be a code thing if they need to have a permit or not have a permit?
I mean. For my own. Political thing to become a little murky from.
It can be, we can take a look at it and talk.
Yeah.
If they're selling, it's a retail store, it's a retail store no matter what they're selling for. If it's just a sign, then probably there's nothing we can do about it. But if it's a retail store, they still have to comply with code for retail. I agree that with a political element to it, we don't really wanna.
There's not, yeah, if it's just, there's just a sign and it's there, it's really.
It's
nothing you
private
can do.
property, they can put up any sign they want to.
Is this, the store, we'll take a look at it, because I know the store used to be in that building.
Yeah.
But you would know, and I know, talking to Randy, our inspector. We'll get to.
But not because it's a political point of view you do not agree with. Simply because if it's a retail store, they have to comply with our codes.
Case that there would be a commercial establishment.
There we go.
Yes.
Anything else from the public then? Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your attendance. Announcements, we have, this is our only meeting for the month in April, so we have Park and Rec on the 16th, Veterans on the 17th, Zoning Hearing Board on the 18th. We have Planning Commission on the 23rd and the EAC will be on the 25th. And our next meeting will be Monday, May 6th at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Stephanie, so I have a second.
Second.
Bridget, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for attendance tonight.
Yeah.
And here's the sign. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Partly.
Oh.